They say stroke changes the way your mind works, but mine came back sharper, sharper than they ever expected. The tires crunched slow over my own gravel. The porch light was off. Strange. Lily always left it on when I came home late, even when we argued, especially then. I reached for the handle. My hand trembled a little, but not from the stroke. I'd gotten used to the numbness in my left fingers. What I hadn't gotten used to was the quiet. The porch was bare. The rocking chair Margaret picked out after her chemo treatments gone. The flower pots we painted that summer she lost her hair gone. Even the welcome mat that said, "Home is where Dad is," vanished. I stood there for a full minute before I noticed the nameplate on the mailbox. The brass had been scrubbed raw. My name, William D. Mercer, was gone, replaced with a sticker, L. Emerson. Lily's married name. I pushed open the door. No lock, not even a latch. Inside, voices. "He won't even notice," Lily said. Her voice was clearer than I remembered, colder too. "You sure? He signed everything." A man, Dan, her husband, I guessed. "He was in recovery. I handled the paperwork, it's done." She stepped into view, startled. "Dad, we didn't expect you back until Monday." "Doctor said I could leave early. Less stress at home," he said. She looked me over like she was assessing damage. "Come in, sit down, don't strain yourself." I stepped inside. My boots made no sound on the new rugs. I looked toward the mantel. There it was. A silver frame, clean, prominent. Inside, a document with 2 signatures. Lily Emerson. And mine. "What is that?" "Just the deed, remember. You said you wanted everything squared away for estate planning in case." "I never said that." "You signed it, Dad. You were there, don't you remember?" "Where's the original?" "This is the original." She smiled like a nurse trying to calm a confused patient, like I was fragile, like my mind was gone. "It was. Your room set up in the back. Guest room, you need rest." I didn't answer. I looked at the picture next to the fake deed. Margaret, smiling, holding Lily at 5 years old before the rot set in, before ambition replaced kindness. I walked past them both, down the hall, shut the door. But I didn't stay. An hour later I sat in my truck, engine off. Darkness wrapped the cab like a shroud. I turned on the dome light. In my wallet, a faded slip of paper. Safe deposit box 312, Union Bank, Margaret D. Mercer. I stared at her name until the words blurred. Her voice echoed. "People will smile while they steal from you, Bill. Always keep a record. Keep it where love can't reach." I kept it. I remembered now. We hid the original deed in the box after Lily pressured us to simplify our estate. Margaret didn't trust the sweet talk. Neither did I. That box held more than paper. It held proof. And they didn't know it existed. If someone's listening, don't let silence swallow your story. Betrayal doesn't always come with screaming. Sometimes it walks in with a casserole and calls you Dad. I turned off the light. Tomorrow I open the box. And the war begins. You don't forget the places your wife made sacred, the ones she trusted more than people. The bank smelled the same, lemon polish and thyme. I pulled into the lot just after sunrise. The sun hadn't burned off the morning fog yet. My hands shook as I rested them on the steering wheel. Not from age, not from weakness, from clarity. Margaret always said, "People lie. Paper doesn't protect the paper." Inside, the clerk looked up, startled. "Mr. Hartley." "Still breathing," I muttered. She stood. "You haven't been in since your wife passed." "No reason to, until now." Her eyes softened. "You still have access. Box 173, you'll need a witness signature." "I brought my own pen," I said, pulling it from my coat pocket like a weapon. She nodded, led me past the vault door, thick, steel, humming like it remembered secrets. Inside, I opened the small metal box. There it was, A white envelope marked in Margaret's handwriting, in case of betrayal. She never trusted easy, not even our daughter. I pulled out the original deed, still folded the way she stored it. The notary stamp from '97, my signature, Margaret's, witnessed, sealed. No Lily, no estate planning. No theft. Just truth. My throat tightened, but I didn't cry. Not here. "Everything all right, Mr. Hartley?" the clerk asked from the hallway. "Yeah," I said, just confirming I still exist. I drove straight to the print shop downtown. "I need copies," I told the young guy behind the counter. "Pristine, and a scan, PDF, cloud backup, flash drive." He looked at the paper like it was a relic. "This is official." "Damn right," I said. Once it was scanned and secured, I slid the flash drive into my shirt pocket. I'd worn that shirt to Margaret's funeral. Seemed right. By lunch, I was sitting in a booth at Dixon's Diner, staring at a bowl of soup that didn't steam. The waitress filled my coffee. Rough day. I met her eyes, something like that. "You got that look," she said, "like someone took something they shouldn't have." "They did," I said. She tapped the pot. "Keep the cup warm. The world feels less cruel when you've got refills." I nodded, but her kindness only deepened the cold. This wasn't an accident. Lily had planned this, had forged a document, lied to the neighbors, lied to me. What she framed was fiction. What I held was law. Margaret must have known, the way she labeled the envelope, in case of betrayal. She saw it coming. And I hadn't. I stirred the coffee, not to cool it, to keep my hands busy. You spend your life raising a child, teaching them about honesty, about legacy, and one day they hand you a lie and expect a thank you. She said I signed it for estate reasons. She looked me in the eye and took my home. Not out of need, but out of entitlement. Lily didn't want to wait, she wanted to own. That house wasn't just wood and stone. It was Margaret's garden, still blooming with perennials. It was our basement, where we danced during storms when the power went out. It was the squeak on the third step that only we knew how to dodge. And now my daughter had erased me. No rage burned. It froze. Deep, solid. And from that silence, something sharper formed. I pulled the flash drive from my pocket, placed it beside the coffee mug. "If someone's listening," I muttered under my breath, "don't let silence swallow your story." The wind outside shook the diner windows, but I didn't flinch. My house wasn't lost. And neither was I. End 2. Send the next summary when ready, and I'll continue without breaking format. They smiled like hosts. I smiled like a hostage. Sunday came dressed in linen and false cheer. Lily had sent out invites to half the block. "Celebrating the remodel," she said. "You'll love it, Dad." But I wasn't a guest, I was a prop. I stood at the edge of the patio, hands wrapped around a coffee I didn't ask for. The cushions on the chairs were new, no sign of Margaret's quilting anymore. Her tulip-patterned fabric had vanished like her voice. "Everyone," Lily chimed, her champagne flute held high. "Thank you for joining us in our new. This is my father, Bill, the one who so generously passed this home down to us." I caught it, the pause before my name. Bill. Not Dad. A few heads turned, polite nods, pastor's wife blinked twice. I gave a tight smile, raised my cup. "Pleasure," I said. Her husband Mark chimed in. "What a legacy, Bill, that's something." Lily slid in beside me, tone syrupy. "Dad loves that we're updating things. We've talked about converting the den into a yoga room." Her husband chuckled. "If we knock out the closet wall, it's big enough for a Peloton." My den, Margaret's reading nook. They were speaking like it was already rubble. "Oh, and we're thinking skylights," Lily added. "It needs more light." "It had light," I said, sipping. "You just never opened the curtains." She froze for a moment, Then her face cracked into a grin. Classic Dad, always a jokester. The neighbors laughed. I looked over them. All these people sitting in chairs I bought, on a porch I sanded, eating on plates Margaret had found on sale in 1982. They weren't bad people. Just blind. "Didn't think you'd be back so soon," Lily's husband muttered low, only for me. "You look good, though, real sharp for a guy post-stroke." I didn't answer. I just watched the smoke rise from the brunch grill, sweet hickory and fake charm. "You're being quiet," Lily whispered later as she refilled my water. "Nothing to say," I replied. "Oh, come on," she teased. "You used to tell stories at gatherings." "You used to call me Dad," I said. She blinked. Her hand trembled just enough to make the ice clink in my glass. I do," she said quickly. "No," I said, "you don't, not today." "I didn't mean." "But you did." A silence ballooned between us. "Don't do this here," she hissed, teeth barely parted. "People are watching." "Good," I said, "let them." She smiled again, but this time her cheek twitched. "You should go lie down, you look pale." "I'm not tired," I said, "but I will walk." "Alone?" she asked. "I've been alone longer than you know." I left through the garden gate. No one stopped me. No one offered a plate to go. On the sidewalk, the concrete hummed with old summers. The crack by the maple tree still caught your heel if you didn't watch. I had filled it once, with my hands. At the curb, I turned to see them. The brunch crowd laughing, sipping, clinking glasses. None of them saw the man who built the bones beneath their feet. The man who still owned the title, even if they'd framed a lie above the mantel. When I stepped back inside through the side door, the living room smelled like lavender spray and candles that didn't belong. Margaret's scent was gone. The fireplace mantel still held the fake deed, framed, centered, proud. I stood before it, breathing deep. Then I whispered, "You're not home yet." And I turned out the light. End 3. Ready for 4's summary when you are. Theft isn't always loud. Sometimes it arrives with silence and a smile. Monday morning started with a rattle at the mailbox. I opened the front door in my slippers to find it empty again. It wasn't just light bills or junk mail. It was everything. Bank statements, veterans' pension notices, even my pharmacy card reissue gone. I stepped back inside, shut the door slow. The floor creaked beneath me like it remembered who I was. "Lily," I said from the hallway, voice steady, "have you seen any of my mail?" She popped out from the kitchen, chewing on a piece of toast like nothing had ever snapped between us. "What mail?" "My statements, my prescription, VA letters." Her eyes fluttered, innocent. "Oh, maybe they're going to the old P.O. box still. You know how those government things are slow." "No," I said. "I changed my forwarding address when Margaret passed. Everything was coming here just fine until I went to the hospital." Her smile froze. "Well, maybe it's the carrier's fault." I nodded, but inside the cold returned. She was lying. And I knew it the way a man knows when someone's been in his drawers, not by sight, but by the wrongness in the air. I called the bank from the landline in my room. A young man answered. "We tried sending your new checks, Mr. Lawson, but they were returned, marked undeliverable." "Returned by whom?" I can't confirm that, sir. But your new online credentials were reset last month by someone with the right security questions." I gripped the phone hard. I didn't reset anything. A beat. Well, someone logged in from a different IP, out of state. I hung up. Went to the kitchen. Lily was humming, cleaning dishes that didn't need it. "Did you change my bank access?" I asked plainly. She turned. "Excuse me." "My logins, my statements." "Why would I?" "You said you helped with estate planning, didn't you?" She crossed her arms. "That's what you wanted, remember?" "I don't remember signing anything." "You were forgetful even before the stroke, Dad." My chest tightened. Gaslighting, cold and calculated. I walked past her to the garage. Inside, dust hung in the air like judgment. The storage cabinet in the corner was slightly ajar. Margaret's filing boxes were missing. Not misplaced, removed. I drove to the storage unit near Maple and 4th. The same one Margaret and I had used when we moved her mother's things years ago. Any units opened recently under Lawson? I asked the clerk. She tapped a keyboard. Not you, but someone named Lily Thatcher. That's your daughter, right? My jaw clenched. What's the access log? 4 entries, 2 this week, signed in under her and her husband. Can I see the cameras? She frowned. We can't show footage without a subpoena, sir. I understand, I said, but could you tell me, was there a man carrying a cedar box? She hesitated, then nodded, looked heavy. He had to rest it on his hip. That box was Margaret's. She kept our mortgage records inside it. The deed before it was duplicated. I stood in the parking lot a long time after. They didn't just forge papers. They erased my paper trail. Margaret's voice played again in my head, a whisper from some voicemail I couldn't delete. If they come for it, they'll come quiet. That's how cowards do it. At home, I stood at the doorway and watched Lily talk on the phone, laughing about catering for next weekend's open house. She didn't see me. Didn't care to. I wasn't a father, I was a loose end. But I had the real deed. I had Margaret's voice. And I had a fire, not the kind that scorches, the kind that smolders. I'd been a soldier once. I knew how to lose ground. I also knew how to take it back. Without noise, without warning. Just truth. And patience. You don't need a weapon to fight, just memory, and someone who believes it still matters. I waited until dusk. The living room was filled with the muted hum of a home that no longer belonged to me. Lily was out. Her husband, too, probably buying hors d'oeuvres for their next performance. I opened my old phone, the one Margaret insisted I keep for emergencies. Helen's number was still saved. She used to work with me on veterans' pensions, pro bono filings, tough cases. I helped her get her dad's records when the VA kept losing them. She owed me nothing. But sometimes, war debts get paid late. The phone rang twice. Then, hello. Helen, I said, my voice cracked. It's Bill Lawson. A pause. Bill, it's been years. I need help. Another pause, longer, then a softer voice, tell me everything. We met at a quiet diner off Route 12. She slid into the booth, still in her gray suit, hair pinned back like she'd come from court. I placed the envelope on the table before she could ask. This is the real deed, I said. Still in my name, notarized. Margaret kept it safe. She opened it, eyes scanning like a surgeon. And this. They framed a fake one in my house. Said I signed it before the stroke. She looked up. Did you? I was barely conscious. And now? They're rerouting my mail, accessed my bank, locked me out of my own accounts. They used my hospital stay like a smokescreen. Helen leaned back, exhaled hard. Jesus. I didn't know who else to call. You're not crazy, Bill, she said. This is fraud, high-level, forgery, elder financial abuse if I've ever seen it. I swallowed. Can you help me prove it? She didn't blink. I can help you burn their house of lies down, but not with fire, with paper. The next day, Helen came by under the guise of checking in on an old client. She wore a soft sweater and carried a clipboard. Lily opened the door, fake smiling like she'd won something. Hi, Helen said. I'm Helen Durand from the Veteran Services Board, just doing a wellness follow-up on Mr. Lawson since his discharge. Lily blinked. Oh, he's resting. I won't take long, Helen said. Just need a few answers for documentation. Lily hesitated, then nodded. Sure, come in. From the kitchen, I listened. What's your relation to Mr. Lawson? Helen asked. I'm his daughter. And you reside here. Yes, we moved in last year. Helen scribbled something. Did he invite you to move in? A pause. Well, we share the home now for tax planning. Interesting, Helen said lightly. Do you have power of attorney? Lily shifted. I think so. We had paperwork signed while he was recovering. Mind if I see it? Helen's tone stayed sweet. I'd have to dig it out. Please do, Helen said, now cool. It's important. Lily vanished into the study. I met Helen's eyes. She gave the smallest nod. When Lily returned with a thin folder, Helen took one glance. This isn't notarized, she said. Well, it was processed. Helen closed the folder. Forged, more like. Lily's face turned. Excuse me. You heard me, Helen stood. You've committed federal crimes, Mrs. Thatcher, and if you want to avoid jail, I'd suggest lawyering up. Lily's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Helen turned to me. Let's go, Bill. I grabbed my coat. Lily stood frozen as we walked out the door. Outside, I whispered, You think she knew I had the original? No, Helen said. She thought you were just another senile man she could milk dry. We got in the car. She underestimated you. I looked out at the house as we pulled away. No, I said, she underestimated Margaret. Some people leave footprints in snow, others leave fingerprints in lies, and lies always melt. Helen's office smelled like printer toner and nerves. She handed me coffee in a styrofoam cup. It tasted like cardboard, but I drank it anyway. We're starting with subpoenas, she said, flicking through papers. Bank records, hospital signatures, tax filings, everything your daughter touched in the last 6 months. I nodded, watching her pen fly across forms like a scalpel. And the copy of the deed, I said. She framed it like a trophy. Helen smirked. We'll make her regret putting it on display. 2 weeks passed like fog. Then the first crack opened. Helen's assistant, a young kid named Drew, slid into her office with a tablet. You're gonna want to see this, he said. I leaned forward. Mr. Lawson, Drew said, tapping the screen, this is the LLC that currently holds a lien on your property, filed out of Delaware 6 weeks ago. The registered agent is Emily Thatcher. Lily's husband's sister, I whispered. Helen's jaw clenched. They built a shell company to create false debt on your home. Drew tapped again. Also found this 2 medical declarations from Dr. Colin M. Henry, both stating mental incompetency due to stroke symptoms. Filed, while you were still in post-op recovery. I gripped the chair. He never evaluated me, never even looked me in the eyes. We'll subpoena the hospital logs, Helen said. If he didn't visit, it's over. My thoughts blurred. Margaret used to tell me, keep your papers clean, Bill, that's your armor now. I never thought I'd be shielding myself from my own daughter. That night I sat in the dim kitchen alone. I stared at my hand. The tremor was back, leftover from the stroke, or maybe just age. Lily walked in, paused. You're still up, she said. Couldn't sleep. She pulled a bottle of wine from the fridge, didn't offer me any. We're thinking of redoing the backyard, she said, sipping. Emily's contractor has great ideas. You know Margaret planted every bush out there, I said. She waved it off. They're dying anyway. I wanted to scream. Instead, I stood. Why are you doing this? She turned, blinked like I'd spoken a foreign language. I gave you everything, I said. Time, love, money, your mother's trust. She laughed. Your old dad, things change. I'm not dead. Not yet, she said under her breath. I froze. What did you just say? She looked up, eyes cold. Nothing. I walked past her, heart thudding. In that moment I knew not just that she wanted the house. She wanted me gone. Helen called the next morning. Hospital logs confirm the doctor never saw you. He was on vacation during the dates he allegedly signed. They faked it, I said flatly. Every inch, she replied. We've got digital forensics pulling metadata from the deed copy too. If it was scanned, time-stamped, or emailed, we'll know. What's next? Affidavits, injunctions, quiet filings will move before they do. Later, I walked the backyard alone. The hydrangeas Margaret planted had withered. The soil looked starved. A half-dug hole sat near the fence, probably Lily's contractor scoping for a pool. I bent down and pressed my hand into the earth. Margaret, I whispered, you were right, they came for it, but I kept your voice. I kept your name on the papers, I kept my promise. Wind moved through the branches. That night, I dug through the old photo box in the closet. Found a Polaroid of Margaret, standing on the porch in her gardening gloves, beaming like sunlight. I slid it into the inside pocket of my coat. They stole my bed. But they couldn't steal memory. Couldn't erase ink. Couldn't bury what was planted right. You don't invite a snake to dinner unless you've already milked the venom. I set the table myself, quiet, deliberate, like loading a rifle in peacetime. Real silverware, linen napkins, the wine Margaret only opened on anniversaries. If they noticed the setup was 2 seats too formal for forgiveness, they didn't say. Jason arrived first, tie loose, cocky grin. Lily came in behind him, wrapped in designer indifference. This looks quaint, she said, eyes skimming the table like a crime scene. I didn't smile, sit. Jason poured the wine without asking. So, what's the occasion, Dad? Early Thanksgiving. I placed the manila envelope between the salt and pepper shakers. My hand lingered there. You remember what this table used to feel like? I asked, not looking at them. When your mother was alive. Jesus, Lily muttered, sitting back. I opened the envelope and slid 3 documents across the table, each one marked with firm, black ink. Jason smirked. You printing bedtime stories now? No, just corrections. He glanced at the first page, then again. The smirk faltered. Lily reached for it. Her eyes flared at the notarized rescission notice. What the hell is this? Legal withdrawal of the power of attorney I never gave you, I said, and documentation that the framed deed in your living room is a forgery. Jason leaned forward. This is absurd. I didn't flinch. So is impersonating a doctor and falsifying medical statements, but here we are. You're confused, Lily said. You're remembering things wrong. No, I said, my voice firm. I'm remembering them right. That's what scares you. Jason grabbed the folder. You think this is enough to win? You're a lonely old man with a vendetta. You'll embarrass yourself in court. I looked at him, really looked. The boy I raised was gone, replaced by a man who'd sell off his own name for a swimming pool and bragging rights. You should know, I said calmly, this isn't the only copy. Helen filed everything with the court yesterday. You'll be served by the weekend. Lily's face blanched. You went to Helen. She owed me a favor, I said. One of those war favors you don't ignore. Jason shoved back his chair. You're going to regret this. I leaned in. No, son, you are. He stood red-faced. We gave you a room, we took care of you. You took my home, I snapped. You buried me while I was still breathing. Lily's voice cracked. We were protecting your legacy. By erasing me from it. Jason's jaw tightened. You won't win. I already have, I said. The room fell quiet, the kind of silence that follows a gunshot no one heard coming. They left without dessert. That night I watched them from the porch as they pulled away. The taillights flickered red down the street, like the last heartbeat of a lie bleeding out. Inside I placed the wine back in the cabinet, uncorked, untouched. Margaret used to say, if you ever break bread with a traitor, make sure the table's yours. It was. And soon, everything else would be again. A man doesn't lose power when his hands shake, only when he stops reaching. The post office clerk looked up from his screen. You sure you want to reroute everything, Mr. Collins? Even banking, medical, legal? I nodded, especially those. He tapped a few keys. All right, P.O. Box 472, you're all set. I walked out clutching the key like it was the last bullet in a war I hadn't asked for. Back at the house, I moved like a shadow. I waited until Lily and Jason left for one of their Pilates and mimosas mornings. Then I unscrewed the tiny nail above the front door frame and mounted the hidden camera, black, unmarked, quiet. Facing the mailbox. Margaret used to say, if you feel watched, make sure you're watching too. That afternoon, I sat in my truck down the street, engine off, window cracked, watching the monitor feed on my tablet. Nothing. The next night I did the same, and the next. Then at 11:43 p.m. on the third night, a figure crept across the lawn. Jason, hoodie on, phone in one hand, flashlight in the other. He opened the mailbox like a thief, pulled out a stack, flipped through, scanning for anything legal looking. I hit record. He stuffed a few envelopes into his pocket, looked around, and jogged back to the side of the house. I didn't move, didn't blink, just watched. The next morning, I slid the footage onto a flash drive. I labeled it Exhibit 4. At Helen's office, she slid it into her laptop. Ballsy, she muttered. Mail theft is a federal crime. Still think they're just confused kids? I asked. Helen didn't answer. She clicked through the footage in silence. I'll draft a motion, she said finally. We'll add this to the injunction, and I'll push for an emergency hearing. I nodded. And Bill, she added, this helps, but keep calm, do not confront them, let the court handle it. I'm not the one breaking in at midnight, I said. I've already done my fighting. She gave me a long look. No, you're doing it now, just with paper instead of fists. At home, Lily was waiting by the door. You went to Helen, she said, arms crossed. I walked past her. We saw the P.O. box notice, she pressed. You think you're going to win by playing secret agent. I set my keys on the counter, not playing. Jason stepped in. You think you can build a case from shadows? No, I said. I'm building it from facts. The shadows are just where you live. Jason laughed. This won't end the way you think. I know, I said, because the way you think ends with me dead and forgotten, but I'm still here. Lily's voice trembled. We're family. No, I said, turning to face her fully. Family doesn't steal. Family doesn't lie in legal ink. She blinked fast. You're old, you don't understand. I understand more than you think, I cut in. I remember how you cried when Margaret died, said you never betray her memory. I stepped closer, steady. You didn't just betray me, you spit on her grave. Silence. Then I walked past them into the guest room. Not mine anymore, not yet. But soon. Later that night, I watched the security feed again, not because I needed more proof. Because I needed to feel that moment, where truth lit up in the dark like a match. Somewhere in the house, a floorboard creaked. Jason, probably packing, Lily muttering into her phone again. Let them move, let them panic. They forgot one thing. When you try to steal a man's life, sometimes he writes it back into existence. There's a silence that follows betrayal, not numbness, but calculation. Helen called just after sunrise, filed and stamped, they've been served. I sat on the edge of my bed, the envelope already in my hands. Neatly printed return address, Collins versus. Collins Civil Division, County Courthouse. Emergency injunction filed. Fraudulent transfer, mail theft, damages. You don't speak to them now. You let the documents do the talking. I stared at the bold black letters. It was real now, inked in law, not blood. Jason found the envelope first. I watched from the porch as he stepped out, still in that smug sleep shirt that read Boss Mode. He tore the envelope open with his thumb. A single blink. Then again, his face paled. "Lily," he bellowed, "get out here now." She came out with coffee in one hand, confusion on her face. Jason slammed the document on the porch table. "They're suing us. Your father, he's suing us." Lily grabbed the papers. Her lips moved silently, reading fast. "That can't be right," she muttered. "He doesn't even remember what day it is most of the time. He signed it. He signed the deed." Jason stepped closer to her. "He's got a lawyer, Helen something." Lily froze. "Helen Martinez," she said quietly. Jason nodded. Lily dropped the coffee. It shattered on the wood. "They tried calling me. 5 times that morning. I didn't answer." By afternoon, Jason was standing at the door of the guest room. "You want to talk like grown-ups, or you want to hide behind a lawsuit," he said. I turned the page of my book. "I'm exactly where you put me, guest room and all." "You're making a mistake," he said. I looked up dead calm. "No, I made the mistake of trusting you. This is the correction." Jason's jaw flexed. "We'll countersue. Defamation, elder confusion, whatever we need to." "Go ahead," I said. "The judge can hear both our sides, under oath." He stormed off. Lily tried next. She actually knocked on my own damn door. "Dad," she said, voice lighter, "can we talk?" I opened the door. She stepped in, looked small now, not cruel, just cornered. "I don't want this to be ugly," she said. "You're still my father." I raised an eyebrow. "Only when it suits you." She blinked, swallowed. "We thought we were helping," she said. "We didn't think you'd." "Catch on," I cut her off. Her mouth shut. I stepped closer. "I raised you better than this," I said. "But maybe that's the problem. I taught you how to read contracts, how to hide your fear. I just never thought I'd be the target." Tears welled in her eyes. But not once did she say she was sorry. That night I sat at the dining table alone. I pulled out Margaret's photo, her eyes always knowing. "If you were here," I whispered, "you'd know exactly what to say." My hands didn't tremble, not this time. My voice held steady. "They tried to erase me, but all they did was teach me where the ink should go." I took the court documents and set them beside the salt shaker. Proof, printed and bound, that I was still here. Outside, I heard them arguing in low tones, accusations flying between them now, not at me, but at each other. The cracks were forming. Panic always leaves fingerprints. The next morning, another envelope came. "Hearing date 2 weeks." I smiled just a little. Jason stormed past me on the way out, dressed too sharp, trying too hard. Lily avoided eye contact altogether. "Good, let them stew." I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, the mug red, property of Dad. They must have missed that in their great purge. Not for long, I said to myself. Justice doesn't always wear a robe. Sometimes it prints on cheap paper and lands on your doorstep. The newspaper hit the driveway just after 6, same thud it's made for 40 years, but this morning it sounded like a gavel. I unfolded it slowly, letting the newsprint ink smudge my fingertips, like I was meant to carry the truth physically. Local veteran battles daughter over home. Deed forgery alleged in inheritance scandal. My face wasn't pictured, just the house, my house. The article was clinical, legal, but under it I could hear the judgment, not from the court, from the town. From everyone who nodded politely at Lily's brunches. Everyone who once said, "She's such a good daughter." By noon, the neighborhood group chat exploded, or so I heard. Marion from 3 doors down, accidentally, left a printed copy of the article in Lily's mailbox. Jason cursed, loud enough to hear through walls. Lily stormed onto the porch, newspaper in hand. "You set the press on us. she shouted toward the guest room. I didn't reply. I didn't have to. It's slander, Jason yelled. You want to play dirty, we'll go lower. I walked to the kitchen, poured tea, no sugar. They'll find out you're losing it, Lily said behind me, voice shaking. That you're old, confused. I turned. You're right, I said. I am old, but I'm not confused, not anymore. She stepped back like I'd slapped her. That evening Helen called. We didn't leak it, she said. Reporter must have pulled it from court records. I nodded into the silence. You okay with this going public? She asked. I looked out the window. A teenage boy skated by, slowed down, then looked at the house at me. He nodded. I nodded back. Yeah, I said, let the light in. Helen exhaled. The article's already spreading online. People care. Good, I replied, because they're about to care more. By Friday, the real estate agent canceled the house listing. Jason paced on the porch, phone glued to his ear. No, we had full rights. It's a temporary legal dispute, not a criminal. No, I didn't forge anything. I watched him from the living room, Margaret's wedding ring spinning slowly between my fingers. Reputation's expensive, I muttered. So is pride. Lily hadn't left her room in 2 days. Her car hadn't moved. I heard her crying once, low and sharp, like she was trying to peel it off her chest without letting anyone hear. But I heard. Saturday morning, I walked to the diner. My booth was waiting. Carol, the waitress, gave me a knowing smile. You seen the paper? Page 3 now, I said. Local fame. She refilled my coffee without asking. A man at the counter turned, eyes scanning. You're the guy from the article, he said. I nodded. Good on you, he said. Most folks would have rolled over. I've done enough rolling, I said. Time I stood up. He offered his hand, I shook it. He had the same calluses I used to have before arthritis took over. Not all hands leave, some still reach back. When I got home, Jason was waiting on the porch, alone. His jaw was tight, his tie hung crooked. You humiliated us, he said. No, I said, walking past him. You did that, I just held up the mirror. We're your family, he snapped. You're making us look like monsters. You're not monsters, I said, keys in hand. You're just greedy and sloppy. He moved toward me. I didn't flinch. You think this ends in court, he hissed. It ends with you alone. I've been alone since the day you called me tenant. I opened the door. This house has more integrity than either of you. He didn't follow me inside. That night I sat by the fireplace. The newspaper, now folded and worn, rested on the coffee table. Margaret's photo beside it. We're not ghosts, I whispered. Not yet. I imagined her smile, quiet, proud. Outside, a wind picked up. The old chimes on the porch began to sing. Inside, it finally felt like home again, not because they were gone. Because the truth was here. Some people walk into courtrooms thinking the truth is negotiable. I walked in carrying the weight of it. The courthouse smelled like varnish and anxiety. I sat on the wooden bench outside courtroom 2B, dressed in my best pinstripe suit. It still fit mostly. Helen sat beside me, flipping through our folder of evidence. You okay? She asked. I nodded slow. I've waited too long for this. She glanced toward the courtroom doors. Jason and Lily are already inside. Good, let them stew in silence for once. I looked down at my wedding ring still on my finger, even now. Margaret would have worn burgundy today. She always said it was a color that didn't apologize. I took a breath. We stood and walked in. Inside, it was smaller than you'd think. Jason sat stiff at the table across from us, arms folded, jaw clenched. Lily didn't meet my eyes. Her lawyer, some kid in an overpriced suit, shuffled nervously. The judge entered. All rise. The court settled. The The weight of consequence replaced the air. Helen stood. "Your Honor, will show evidence that the transfer of the property deed was obtained under false pretenses, using forged signatures and fraudulent power of attorney while my client was medically incapacitated." The judge nodded. "Proceed." We started with the medical files. Helen held them up. "Here's the hospital admission record, date and time. Now compare that to the notarized deed transfer, signed the very same day my client was under sedation following a stroke." The judge leaned forward. "He was unconscious during this time." Helen nodded. "And the notary's signature? It's from someone who hasn't lived in the state in 5 years. We've subpoenaed the actual notary. She confirms she didn't witness any signing." Jason squirmed. Lily shifted in her seat, her mouth a tight, trembling line. Next came the bank records. Helen tapped the screen as we displayed the timeline. Joint accounts drained over 2 months. Unauthorized withdrawals labeled as maintenance fees. Funds transferred to a shell company, registered in Delaware under Jason's name. That same Shell LLC attempted to mortgage the house weeks after the forged transfer. The judge raised an eyebrow. "And the original deed?" Helen handed it over. "Notarized years earlier, still in my client's name, stored in a third-party bank safe under his late wife's maiden name." The courtroom went silent. Even Jason's lawyer sank lower in his seat. Jason stood up. "This is all twisted. He gave us the house. He said it was for tax planning." The judge looked over his glasses. "Did he sign a power of attorney?" Jason hesitated. "Yes, months ago." Helen stepped forward. "We have handwriting analysis from 2 independent forensic experts confirming the signature was forged." Jason looked at Lily. She looked down. The judge nodded slowly. "Anything else?" Helen glanced at me. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the USB drive. "This," I said, voice steady, "is the footage of my son stealing mail from my box, including legal notices and medical bills." I handed it to the clerk. Jason turned red. "That's not even, that was just." The judge lifted a hand. "Enough." The ruling came 30 minutes later. The court finds the transfer fraudulent and void. Ownership of the property reverts to the plaintiff immediately. Damages in the amount of $185,000 awarded. The defendants are ordered to vacate within 10 business days. Jason sank back in his chair like the floor had dropped out. Lily burst into tears. Neither looked at me. Outside, Helen exhaled sharply. "You won." I shook my head. "No, I just took back what was already mine." She squeezed my shoulder. "You were smart," she said. "No," I muttered. "I was quiet, that was the mistake." Across the street, a small group of neighbors stood huddled near the courthouse steps, holding copies of the newspaper. One of them waved. Another clapped. I didn't wave back. I just nodded. That night, I sat by the window with the court papers spread out before me. The gavel hadn't felt loud enough. Justice, it turned out, was quieter than revenge, but far heavier. Outside, the porch light flickered once, then held steady. And for the first time in months, I turned the key to lock my own front door. It's strange how justice doesn't roar. It arrives in an envelope, carried by someone who doesn't know the war it ends. I opened the front door before the sheriff knocked. He held the envelope in one hand, his expression blank. "Mr. Harding." I nodded. He handed it over gently like it weighed more than paper. "Notice of enforcement. They've got 72 hours to vacate." I took it, ran my fingers over the seal. "Thanks for your time." He paused. "I've seen a lot of these. Never seen one where the plaintiff was also the father." I met his eyes. I wish I hadn't. He tipped his hat and walked back to his car. I waited until sunset. Then I drove to Lily's place. Or rather to my place, the house I built with Margaret, every brick, every beam, every corner of it. They parked a leased SUV in the driveway now. Solar panels on the roof that I didn't approve. I noticed every change. I knocked once. Jason answered the door, shirtless, holding a beer. "What do you want?" I held the envelope up. "Sheriff gave me this, thought it'd be better coming from me." He took it, eyes narrowing. "You're really doing this?" I didn't blink. "It's not revenge, it's restoration." Behind him, Lily appeared in a bathrobe. She looked tired, hollowed out. "Dad." "No," my voice didn't rise, but it cut through the air. "Not Dad. You called me Bill to strangers. Keep the same name now." Her lip trembled. "We just wanted stability. You didn't need the space." "That house is more than space," I said. "It was trust, and you bulldozed it for a remodel and a gym." Jason scoffed. "You're choosing a building over your own blood." I leaned forward. "No, Jason, you made that choice for me the moment you forged my name." They didn't cry, not then. They just stood there in silence, holding a deadline between their hands like it burned. I stepped off the porch without another word. As I walked to my car, Lily called out, "Where do we go?" I didn't turn, not my concern anymore. 3 days later, I drove by at dawn. A moving truck sat in the driveway. Black garbage bags lined the curb. Jason barked orders while Lily stood by the mailbox, staring at the brass letters still reading the Hardings. I parked across the street. She saw me. For a moment her face softened, like she might wave, might say something. But I just rolled the window down and stayed silent. Jason noticed and muttered something to her. She turned away. "Good. Let that be the last glance." By noon they were gone. The house sat empty again, but not hollow, just waiting, breathing. I unlocked the door. Walked in slow. The air smelled different, sterile, like lavender candles trying to mask guilt. I walked through each room. The living room, where Margaret used to read on Sunday afternoons. The kitchen, where she taught Lily to bake cinnamon rolls. The upstairs hall, where I once taped Lily's honor roll certificate to the wall. I reached the study. Found it untouched. Still mine. I sat in my old chair, exhaled. A knock at the door. I stood, my back already straight. Helen stepped inside. "You did it." I nodded, no appeals filed. "Nothing that'll stick, fraud's hard to argue with." She handed me a manila folder. "It's yours again, every record clean, updated, sealed." I held it close. "Feels different," I whispered. She smiled. "That's what dignity feels like when it comes back." That night I lit the fireplace. I placed Margaret's photo back on the mantel, beside the ceramic vase she loved. Then I poured a cup of black coffee and sat in the armchair, listening to the creak of the house, like it was exhaling too. The war was over. The house was mine again. But more than that, I'd made them leave without yelling. Without fists. Without becoming what they thought I was, weak, forgetful, dispensable. They underestimated silence. But silence remembers everything. And now it echoed through the empty walls, proud. Some inherit houses, others inherit silence, but Margaret left me something better, a purpose that can't be signed away. I stood behind the podium on the front porch, the one Jason once threatened to knock down for open concept. Now it held microphones. A crowd gathered across the lawn, not massive, but enough. Reporters with notepads, 2 camera crews. Neighbors in folding chairs, and a handful of veterans from the old VFW post who'd come in uniform. Helen stood beside me, clipboard in hand. I cleared my throat. "My name is William Harding. Most of you know me as the man who recently regained legal possession of this house. Murmurs rolled through the crowd. But this isn't about a deed. It's about what was built inside these walls and what was nearly destroyed. I looked at Margaret's photo, framed beside me. This home was meant to be a legacy, not a prize. But after the press conference, a journalist from the local paper approached. "Mr. Harding, why not just sell the property now that it's back in your hands?" I shook my head, because I'm not here to profit off pain. "So what's next?" I looked out over the lawn, where Lily once played with a plastic soccer ball. "I'm opening the Margaret Harding Veterans Center," I said. "Grief counseling, transitional housing, legal support." The woman blinked. "Here in this house." I nodded. "This house has seen betrayal. It's time it hosts healing." Inside, Helen helped me rearrange the dining room. We folded up the glossy dining table Jason had bought and placed 6 chairs around Margaret's old oak one. It looked worn, uneven, perfect. "You think people will come?" I asked. "They already are," she replied, pointing to her phone. 3 donations just came in since your speech. One guy said you saved his dad's pension case with your story." I exhaled. "It's not about saving anyone." "No," she said. "It's about telling the truth, loud enough that others feel brave enough to speak." Later, I stood in the hallway upstairs, looking at Lily's old bedroom. I hadn't been inside since she moved out for college. I opened the door. Still pink with fatting band posters. The shelves were empty now. She must have cleared them during the takeover. Took the trophies but left the walls scarred with nail holes. I sat on the bed. The mattress sighed under my weight. I ran my hand across the headboard. "I raised you better," I whispered, "didn't I?" But the room gave no answer, just the soft groan of wood too old to protest. Downstairs, Helen was typing at her laptop. "Drafting the Articles of Incorporation," she said. "I want a clause," I told her. She looked up. "If Lily or Jason ever attempt to lay claim, block them. Explicitly. I don't care if they come back crawling." Helen nodded. "It's your right." "No," I said, "it's my duty." That evening I printed the mission statement, framed it, hung it in the front hallway. Margaret's name at the top. In the foyer, where Lily once threw her backpack after school. Now it would greet every visitor as a reminder. Not of vengeance, but of purpose. At 9 p.m., I got a text from an unknown number. "Dad, I saw the live stream. I didn't know it meant that much to you." I stared at the screen. Didn't reply. Instead, I powered off the phone, walked into the study, and placed the deed beside Margaret's portrait. She would have been proud. Not because I won, but because I remembered who I was, even when everyone else tried to rewrite me. The hardwood floor creaked under my step. Not a sound of age. A sound of return. Revenge ends the war, but letters remind you why you fought in the first place. The first one arrived on a Monday. A plain envelope, no return address. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper, handwritten in blocky cursive. "You don't know me, but I watched the press video. My dad passed last year. They tried to take his land while he was in hospice. You didn't just fight for your house, you fought for all of us." No signature, just a small sticker of an American flag in the corner. I read it twice, then a third time. And I didn't know what to do with it, not at first. So I set it on Margaret's old pie cabinet, like an offering. By the end of the week, there were 12 more. "Dear Mr. Harding, I'm a nurse at the VA hospital. You reminded me why we fight for dignity. Dear Sir, my father served in Korea. His children turned on him. Your story helped me forgive him and myself." One came from a teenager, said his grandfather used to cry alone on the porch. that now he'd ask him to talk. I opened each carefully, flattening the creases. They didn't feel like congratulations. They felt like confessions no one else would hold. That Saturday, I hosted the first Veterans Circle in the living room. No podium, no audience. Just 5 of us, chairs in a ring, coffee in paper cups, Margaret's lavender candle flickering. Tommy was first to speak. Spent 20 years overseas. Came home and my daughter said I'd changed too much. Told me I was better off in my trailer. He didn't cry, none of us did. But the silence afterward was full of weight, the kind only other ghosts understand. James, the youngest in the room, cleared his throat. My son forged my name on a reverse mortgage, he said. I didn't know until the bank called me a squatter. I watched his hands tremble as he sipped his coffee. Helen sat on the edge just listening. No clipboard, no legalese. Just a human being bearing witness. After they left, I stayed in the living room, candles still burning low. I looked at the picture frame on the mantel, not the deed this time. It was one of Margaret and me, our 40th anniversary. She wore that ridiculous wide-brim hat she bought in Savannah. I whispered, "They're finally talking, Maggie, just like you wanted." The next week, I got a letter from a woman in Vermont. They silenced my father, said he was confused, took the farm. Thank you for shouting when others whisper. That line stayed with me. Shouting when others whisper. I was never a loud man, but I'd learned something since the lawsuit, the press, the verdict. Sometimes silence is mistaken for consent. And sometimes a raised voice is the only kindness left. I bought a binder, started filing the letters by date. Not to organize them, just to honor them. Each one felt like a stone pulled from someone's chest. At night, I'd sit in the kitchen and respond to 1 or 2. Handwritten. Slow. Deliberate. Because if they took the time to write to me, the least I could do was write back. I never signed just Bill, always. William Harding. Veteran, father, survivor. On a Thursday evening, during the second group session, Tommy stood up after we finished. I never thought this house would feel like church, he said, but somehow it does. The men nodded. Even Helen wiped her eye. I smiled, not big, just enough. Because it wasn't about me anymore. It never really was. It was about making sure no man, old or young, dies thinking their story didn't matter. Later that night, I sat by the window. Rain tapped the glass in soft rhythms. In my lap, another letter. Fresh. Unopened. The envelope said, "I hope you keep fighting, because people like you remind the rest of us not to fold." I didn't recognize the handwriting. Didn't need to. Somehow, it felt like it was from Margaret. I held it to my chest, eyes closed. I didn't cry. I just let the weight settle. Not grief. Not revenge. Just purpose. And in the quiet of that moment, I realized I had finally moved back in. Some victories don't come with applause. They come with silence, with stillness, and finally with peace. I stood in the study just after dawn. No suits, no cameras, no Helen, no veterans, no letters in hand. Just me. In the house. It smelled like wood polish and the last of Margaret's lavender candle. Light crept in through the curtains slow and golden, like it remembered how to be gentle with me. In my hands, the original deed. The one with my name, Margaret's initials in the margin, the notary seal aged to a soft gold. I held it the way I once held my daughter when she was born, careful, reverent, scared I'd drop something sacred. But this time there was no crying in the room, only breathing. I opened the top drawer of the bookshelf and took out a frame, matte black, heavy, solid like something meant to last. I slid the deed inside and closed the latch. Then I turned to the wall, just above Margaret's portrait. Her smile, frozen in that photo from Charleston, watched me with a kind of secret approval. I hung the frame above her, centered straight. The glass caught a sliver of sun. For the first time in over a year, the house felt like it exhaled. There was a time I thought the deed was just paper, a technicality. But it was. It was the last fingerprint of trust between my wife and me, a record that we had built something and it mattered. Lily tried to erase that, tried to write her name over our story. But the ink of betrayal never dries clean. I walked down the hallway slowly. The guest room was empty now. The bed stripped, closet door ajar, dust settling again like peace. I passed Lily's old bedroom, still painted in that stubborn teal she picked at 14. I never repainted it. I just let time cover the edges. The mailbox had my name again. William Harding, embossed firm. And below it, a brass plaque that Helen sent me last week. In memory of Margaret Harding, this house protected those who served. I hadn't installed it yet. Maybe I would tomorrow. Or maybe I'd just keep it on the kitchen table. Let visitors ask about it. Let the story find them, the way all good stories do. I made a pot of coffee, black, strong, just how I liked it before the stroke. I poured it slow, letting the steam curl into the morning. Outside, the wind moved through the oak like a quiet anthem, like a song only old men remember. I stepped out onto the porch, my porch. The rocking chair creaked beneath me like an old friend sighing. Across the street, young Michael from next door waved. "Morning, Mr. Harding," he called. "Morning," I said. That was all. The mail truck came around noon. The carrier handed me a stack, smiled. "Still getting letters, huh?" she said. "Seems some stories don't end on the front page," I replied. She nodded. "Well, yours gave a lot of folks something to hope for." Hope, funny word. Hard to hold, easy to fake. But today, it didn't feel like fiction. I walked back inside, put the letters on Margaret's pie cabinet, took one long look around the house. The walls didn't feel like they were holding their breath anymore. The floors didn't echo like I was trespassing. It was mine again, not because a judge said so, not because the papers were signed, but because I never stopped believing it was. And I never stopped fighting like it mattered. Somewhere down the line, Lily might tell her version. Say I was bitter, controlling, that I didn't want to let go. Let her. Because I don't need to win every story. Just the truth. And the truth is framed in my study, above the woman who told me once. Always keep a record, Bill, not just for proof but for pride. So I did. And now I can rest. Not in defeat. Not even in triumph. But in dignity. And that is enough.